I think this journey towards digital has been going on for quite some time, and it takes different forms and avatars as it takes on. And we as an organization have been in this journey for a long time. We were amongst the early adopters of cloud, amongst the early adopters of converting paper into images and using then image and some sort of technology to convert image into data to take the journey forward. The interesting inflection point came for us is as we started getting more direct to customer and creating journeys which are more digital than digitized in their avatar. So if I, as a lending company, typically if you think about it, as a lending company, you want to do KYC for the customers, you want to do some checks from a credit or underwriting perspective, you want to do some basic documentation from an agreement, so on, and have a repayment mechanism back to the customer. As we build our digital journeys, and I'm talking with an example of our consumer app platform, the customer has been enabled where he or she can complete this journey completely online in a digital avatar. And to a large extent, some of the ecosystem which has been developed by the government, by iSpirit, by UIDAI, enables that, right? So today KYC can be done completely digitally. Your mandates for taking the repayments can be done digitally. Agreements can be done digitally. So it's possible to design a journey which is end-to-end digital, and the customer pretty much can get the money or the loan sanction in their or his or her account from it. The main point is to imagine this from a customer perspective. So how do you keep the journey smooth? What are the touch points? How do you engage with the customer? What are the breakages and how do you solve for that? There's a happy journey, there are broken journeys. And on our app platform, pretty much for most of our products, on the lending as well as on the deposit side, we've been able to build that as we have built it over the last few years. The other interesting realization, and I think it's very obvious but goes without saying, is again in the app platform or any of our digital platforms, if I think back from a customer perspective, a customer is not necessarily going to be looking for a loan product every other day or every month or every few weeks, right? So if you have to drive engagement for this customer, you need to look at your customer holistically. What will drive the engagement? So again, digital is not just about your journeys. You have to think from a customer perspective, what all will the customer look at digitally? We introduce payments and rewards pretty much for that objective, that as customer looks at making payments using wallets, UPI, BBPS and so on, that's the way a customer would keep coming back to your digital properties more often. You link it with rewards, it builds a flywheel where the customer starts seeing the benefit coming in from there. So again, digital has to be thought customer first, has to be designed where we make the journey smooth and frictionless, where we look at end-to-end digital journeys, but we also step back and think what matters for the customer, what will engage the customer, what will get the customers to complete the journey, and you build an ecosystem which will enable it. To the extent today, some of our offline journeys also we're bringing online. So a customer may be visiting a store to pick up, say, a TV or a fridge in the offline world, but part of the journey, whether it is an agreement, whether it is subsequently seeing their invoice, subsequently seeing their statement of account, all of that is being enabled digitally. So the customer also has a physical choice of which part of the journey the customer can do online in a digital avatar, which part of the journey the customer can do offline, and then what part of each of those can they swap between them. So that gives the convenience, the flexibility, and the option to the customer as we develop these journeys. No, thank you for asking that question. It's a very, very pertinent question, and more so in the context where you're working in an environment which is highly regulated, which has possibly legacy systems at the back end, which have been built for a certain era, which were not real-time digital, which used to work on a batch mode, end-of-day mode, so on. And then when you're looking at how do I convert this into a digital world where expectation is near real-time, expectation is journeys are smooth, your platforms and the choices you make can completely make it a success or a failure from that sense. Again, for us, we have been technology, we are customer first, and within that, our approach always is how do we look at technology? How do we think of the processes so that we can enable the digital first journey, leveraging technology to the max possible? And whether it's a CRM system at one end, but more importantly, some of the back-end systems. How do you create a middle layer? How do you create the databases which are specific to your work types, which are refreshed at a frequency far higher than what you have traditionally been doing? What sort of APIs you are building from a data flow and from a sync perspective? The backend is typically never highlighted, but unless the backend is in place, a lot of the MarTech platforms which are in the front end will not enable the job that they need to do. So I do want to highlight that of the iceberg, the tip is visible, but the bottom of the iceberg is what do you do at the backend so that the customer experiences a far more seamless journey out there. Having said that, on the front end, I think there's a plethora of options available. So one is spoiled for options, but it also means that one needs to be judicious in terms of what are your use cases, what do you want to target, how do you want to take it forward, right? So right from if you want to attract your customers, how are you engaging from a search perspective, whether on the App Store, whether on Google, what tools are you using to bring the customers in? Second, more interesting as you think of journeys, what is the click stream, what is the footprint that the customers are leaving? How are you analyzing this? What is the tool that you're deploying from that perspective? How is that feeding into your data warehouses? What sort of models are you building on top of that? How are you retargeting customers? How are you using data science to know who to go after when, at what frequency, with what channel? And then a lot of competitive insights that you can gather using some of the players out there. So we are using a mix of different MarTech platforms from a front-end perspective, from simplifying at the back end, and then even on the specific platform, whether it's the content, what sort of AEM you use, whether it's the platforms for storage of say videos, so what sort of DAM architecture are we using from that perspective. Each of this can make or break the customer experience. So if I were to summarize it, I think there are plenty of choices. I'm not going to name any specific players out here, but depending on the use case, there are enough choices. The main element, at least that we have learned, is how well do you understand and use it? How well is that data flowing? How well is that data being enabled? And most importantly, it's not just the front layer and what is on the platform. In our context, your backend systems, if they are not re-engineered, if they are not made for the near real-time digital journeys, you will not be able to deliver an experience to the customer that the customer is looking for in the digital world. For us, data is the backbone. It's very, very critical. The data enables us to make better offers to our customer. Data enables us to say that Kurush should be getting a certain offer versus not. Data enables to say which channel should I reach out to Kurush through, at what frequency, what steps and so on. So data is at the core of what we do. However, having said that, I think of late we have also seen that a lot of people have been abusing how they collect data and how it is being manipulated in a way that is not to the benefit of the customer. So we are highly supportive of the changes which are being recommended. I know they're still in the draft stage, but as the data bill comes to bear, we highly encourage some of the early directions and thoughts it's taking, because it's not very draconian, it's not taking away from the benefit to the customer, but it is giving more choices to the customer in terms of what consents are they giving, taking it back and so on. Right? Even if you see the latest digital lending guidelines that the RBI has come up with, it is making it right for the customer. It is giving customer a choice, and with consent, you are able to do a bunch of things which will make the offers or what you can do for the customer journeys much more relevant and personalized. So if you want to make things personalized and not have a common approach, data is the way we can do it. Important thing is that how do you not abuse it? How do you not do it in a manner that the customer is not consented to? building those strong mechanisms, building the right data warehouse and the structures from a storage perspective so that you are mitigating the risk of privacy or somebody breaking into it. But again, Varsha, easier said than done. All of this is not a journey at a point. It's not a point, it's a journey. You have to be at it. It is not that we reach entitlement on day one. It's an ongoing frame of how you're storing data, how you're securing it, what sort of visibility are you giving it to the customer, what is the mechanism from consent mechanism. So it has a life of its own, and you have to keep current with what is required. But at an overall level, I think some of the changes that we are reading coming in and which are important is going to help the customer. And for players who are abiding by it, it can only benefit and will work in our favor. Answer will vary, frankly, right? Because I can argue some of them are fluff. I can argue some of them will become mainstream. Some of these are technology is never end state, right? Technology is a solution, is a means to an end. What is the root problem it is solving for? Then there are different technologies behind. You have to figure out for your customer, for the problem, for the challenge, for the opportunity, what makes sense and what's going to come into place. Till a few years back, QR code not so prevalent in India, very prevalent in China. You can see how it has become quite omnipresent in terms of how it is being consumed all across. Blockchain, one has been talking about it, hearing about it for a long time. Its own manifestation in the consumer space has not been as strong, and some of the spaces where it has been used on crypto, etc., we're seeing that the regulatory view on some of those are quite stringent in how it is playing out. All of us are reading and seeing it all the time. So again, it has to be about not the technology but the use case. Let me give you some interesting examples. Like you spoke about Meta and so on. Meta is a combination of multiple things coming into place. Whether you're going to use the AI, you're going to use IoT, you're going to use the different platforms. But again, how do you cherry pick? In our context, the example is very simple, very intuitive. A lot of our customers are purchasing mobiles, they're purchasing smartphones, they're purchasing smart digital watches and so on. A simple AR tool which gives them a feel for what would that look on their hand. If they're buying some furniture, what would it look like in their room? So you can create gamified AR tools, you can create virtual showrooms where customer sees the benefits. So again, it's about what benefits the customer and then the technology to support it versus let me try and force fit a technology because it is new, it is being spoken of to push it in that space. That's a personal view. We are leveraging some of this as we talk. Some of these would prefer to wait and watch to see how it is playing out. And specifically anything which is on the edge where there is any regulatory arbitrage or there is lack of clarity, we will shy away from that. Tough one. While we have certain processes in place, I'll allude to that. But yes, I think the main point you called out is it's a very rapidly evolving space. So how much do you keep current with it? But let me break it down into how do we do it structurally. So once a year, we do an exercise which is of our long-term strategy plan. As part of our exercise, consciously we benchmark what is happening in that space around us. So extensively for a good 20 to 30 days, teams are looking at and they are ripping apart and looking threadbare at the various aspects which are happening in our digital space, and it's industry agnostic, right? It's not about what's happening in our industry, it's saying what's happening in the industry at large, what is best in class, what can we take from there. So it's a very thought through structured approach, and coming from that, we then understand which of this has relevance for us, which of this we want to take on, and how do we take it forward. So that's a very, very specific area. Similarly, we do something called a customer experience activity, where we again look at our customer experience in our digital properties. What is the experience being given? For those journeys, for those experiences, cross-industry, what is happening? What can we build in from there? every year as we do this activity, new and new things start coming into place. Simple examples if I can quote, right? So from a service perspective on the digital properties, how do we move more and more service to do it yourself? How do you make the FAQs more contextual? How do you bring in a chat mechanism which is contextual, relevant, vernacular, which makes sense for the customer? Some of these are intuitive, but as you benchmark and as you look at 5 others and who is best in class, the nuance you catch from it is very, very relevant. That's one aspect. Both as part of this activity as well as also otherwise, because we work with an ecosystem of partners, we keep engaging with them on a continual basis that what is it that they have to offer, what is changing in this space, doing joint workshops on what we can collaborate on, what we can pilot, what we can take forward. So that's a continuous stream that we keep doing entirely through the year. And lastly is through forum like yours, hearing others in terms of what they are working on, what are their priorities, what are their learnings, and what can we learn from that. So we have, as I call it, there's a structured approach which we do in a very, very formal manner, our own ecosystem, and participation in forums like this, in participation in forums of key players like Google and Meta, what they are doing, learning from them, and more importantly, bringing that learnings or the changing landscape back, converting it into an executable plan that what will we do in what time frame, so that it sees light of the day and is not just a concept. It's more of a request or an ask, right? Again, the same platforms, players, the partners with whom we work on in this space, since they have a view which is more cross industry, cross companies, I think there's an opportunity to be more bold, to partner on new pilots, to find partners with whom they can pilot and test new things. I think they will find a lot of appetite, and not just with smaller startups, even with established players like us, to go out there and try things and see what is working. So the opportunity to co-create things is what I'm calling out. And within that, to take some bold steps in terms of piloting and testing things to see how it works out. So I would call that out as definitely one of the areas that I see an opportunity for. And we're talking to a few partners in that space, but I would love to see a lot more of that happening. And secondly, not truly MarTech in that sense, but in the digital journeys, there's an ecosystem which is developing very, very rapidly, very strongly pushed by the government, by the quasi-government agencies. Again, as we partner with them, they're very open, very receptive to change, to what we can improve out there, using that forums and using those platforms as well. And some of them are going to be big game changers. If you're familiar with account aggregator, it's going to change the lending landscape significantly. ONDC from an e-commerce perspective, what UPI did for the payment space, and hence how the digital journeys have changed. Each of this is capable of doing something to the same extent. So I think it's fascinating. The options are huge. The market is massive. Let's just go and make the most of it and create products, services, and experiences and journeys that our customers love.